Good morning to you. You're with me, Miriam Angel, Salim Barisa, and Emmanuel Somebody. Gona. Gona sijui umenikaliaje leo.
Gona lazima.
Gona hayuko hapa
Nah,
leo.
he's typing. I'm
with me.
seeing somewhere he's typing.
You with me, Miriam Angel and Salim Barisa. Gona is unwell. He's under the weather, so he's not here today. However, in studio is the advocate of the High Court, that is Zedekiah Adika. He's also the Chair Coast Civil Society Network for Human Rights. Zedekiah, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. Good to have you here.
Good to have you too.
Karibu sana Swahili Pot.
Asante.
Now, the national government, we want to talk about on-source revenue.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people who don't know what on-source revenue is.
Yeah.
So we know that the national government, there's money allocated to the county governments.
Yes.
Every financial year
Yes.
for it to be able to perform, right? But then also the county government is expected to generate its own income.
Yeah.
Let us start with that. How do county governments generate their own income?
There are a number of ways. You let me give you a history.
Yeah.
Initially, the revenue used to largely come from national government, but through national government's departments.
Yes.
And therefore, that's what you heard about Siasambaya, Maishambaya, where the president and the minister for finance and the cabinet would sit for a long time, agree which part of this country is politically aligned. Then they will come on the budget day and show you the briefcase. That this is it. This is how we are going to use money.
Yeah.
So when this constitution came, there was an idea that let us give a little bit more liberty
Yeah.
to counties to collect their own resources, but also from the nationally collected resource, you would have counties getting their share. And that share of revenue is supposed to be at minimum 15% of the national share. The national government have done its part largely. If you look at the records since 2013, 2014, largely what they say they will do, they always do. There are complaints about sometimes it delays.
Yeah.
But if you look at the projected amount that should be going to counties, the national government have always shared that amount. There have been complaints about whether it's adequate,
Yes.
but that's another debate altogether. Now, the county have certain revenue streams that where they collect money, and one of them is now we have FIF. And under FIF, this is largely generated from hospitals. They generate their own revenue, and they are supposed to use that revenue within those facilities.
Yeah.
You have hospitals like Makadara that have already been doing this for quite some time, and the money that they get is controlled by boards within those institutions. But those are few institutions. In I think in the coast it could only be Makadara.
Yeah.
So the rest of the revenue depends on how the revenue department within the county is organized. So you have FIF, you have land rates. Most of the land rates are largely provided to the county. And then you have single business permits, you have parking fees. Yeah, those are the largely the biggest contributors to the kitty that goes to the county. There's another one, this one where the cess, yeah, that's another big contributor to county's revenue. So those are revenue streams that national government do not touch. They are collected at the county level, they are taken to county treasury, and the county decides what to do with them. And in the constitution, it is provided that the first oversight institution to those revenues should be the county government assembly. Whether that happens, that's another question, another debate altogether.
I want to take you. You've talked about that's now the on-source revenue.
Yeah.
How counties can generate the revenue.
Yes.
But now there's a budget that's coming from the national government, right?
Yes.
Now we also hear there are a lot of complaints when the money does not come in time.
Mm-hmm.
When this money does not come in time, what happens?
Most of the time, what is expected is that in the budget for the counties, the local revenue is supposed to plug into some gap.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when it does not come in time, most of the time, we should be having our own revenue. But there's a problem in the way revenue have been conducted in Kenya, especially at the counties, because our projections are always higher than the actual that we get. So most of the time, I can tell you statistics, what I looked at, going by the reports of the Control of Budget and the Commission for Revenue Allocation, what I got for the 5 counties in the coast, we have had a total of 83%, that being the actual. So the 17% has been a gap in the last 5 years. The way we project is that we project more than what we always got. So Mombasa, for instance, has been at 69. That is I'm giving you the mean of those 5 years. Kilifi has been at 68.6%. And then Kwale has been at 74%. Taita Taveta has done well at 84%. Tana River has done well. I'm talking about projection. I'm not talking about the amount. So 91%. But the best has been Lamu.
So when you talk about projections, this is what they project to collect.
Yes. You see what happens, for instance, at national government, national level. The National Assembly most of the time says we will collect, like now I think it's 4.3 trillion of the entire budget. Out of that budget, you will find grants, and then you will find the revenue that will be collected through KRA. So there is a projection that they say that makes that total. And I want to talk slightly about it. I've gotten involved. Our network for Coast Civil Society network, especially at the governance thematic group, we've gotten involved in this for quite too long, and we have called out most of these governors for putting a projection that is higher. What happens is if you put a projection that is too high, you'd find that you will always have a gap, a natural gap. And that gap means that you will not provide certain services. Because you will not have the money to provide those services. Given that I've told you that the national government in most circumstances and those grants, they come. So we have in our revenue stream, we have the national government allocation that comes, then grants that comes, probably World Bank has given us 1 billion or something. Those money come. Where there's a problem, why we have these pending bills, why we have these gaps is because what we project, we do not get. And we have, for instance, recently, the Coast Civil Society Network for Human Rights did a study in Vita to see the capacity of how much can we collect. And we had a debate of the amount that we project. How do we come up with that figure? During Joe's time, we were always on-source revenue was always projected at 5-point-something billion, but we kept on getting 2.7, 3.0, 3.5. I think the best that Joe did was around 3.3 billion, and that was when they were transitioning to this government. They did well towards. If you tabulate the amount that I'm going to get on parking, and I know the amount that I'm going to get on FIF, and I know the amount I should get on land rates, I know the amount I should get on business permits, then I should project based on that amount. And it should not be on your actual. For instance, this year, if my actual is, let me use the actual example, 4.4 billion for Mombasa in the last financial year. Then there are indicators. I will give you the example of Mvita where we went. We counted single business permits one by one. We did a census. We counted them one by one. and we found that they could get around 275 million from Vita, from just single business permits. So if they count the entire Mombasa, say for instance it comes to 1 billion, then that should be what should fall into our documents as projections. But then the reality should also be, for instance, if I project the actual figures take me to 8 billion, yeah, but our budget, the actual budget should be less than that, because most of the time you will not get the perfect numbers. So if you budget, say, by 6 billion, then that is realistic. If your total estimates, actual estimates on the countings is 8 billion. But if you now throw it to 9 billion, then realistically you also know you're lying to people. So for instance, now we have the CFSP, I think for this financial year, and it is projecting around 5.1 billion as on-source revenue. I can say that for me is realistic, because I looked at the production that we got in the other financial year. It was around 3.3 billion. Then it moved to 3.9 billion. Then it moved to 4.4 billion. If you look at that growth, it is around 16% rise. So that tells you that if you calculate, then you're likely to get 5.1 billion. But what we have asked the county government and the governor in person is get your data right. So that then when you speak to people, you project, you give this data to people, it is something that you can point out from your own office that this is what we have. And he has actually said that they have assigned 50 officers to just look at the reality of the data that they have.
Zedekiah,
Yes.
mimi swali langu litakuja hapa Kilifi.
Yes.
Since inception,
your
county on source revenue hawajawahi fika bilioni moja. For the first time, Mungaro walifika
1.2 billion.
Yes. For the first time. Miaka 10 yote hawajai hit. But juzi now, the governor na serikali yake walifanya mnahitaji mobilizing ya kuelimisha raia, wananchi kwamba hivi ndivyo watakavyotoa ushuru na wataokota ushuru hivi. They printed kofia, t-shirt, walitumia fuel na kila kitu. Is that the way we should be working on how kukusanya our own revenue?
On source revenue.
Yes.
I cannot completely criticize it, ama siwezi criticize entirely. Kuna njia za kupeana watu information kulingana na mkitaka revenue. The best for me would be provide services, then talk to people that have given you a road. Ama ni taa ilikuwa ni shida, watu hawezi fanya business usiku, taa hiyo, and then sasa mfanye biashara usiku na sisi pia tupatie ile yetu. That for me is the best. The best way to communicate to wananchi ni kuambia kwamba tushafanya, nyinyi pia sasa tupatie ushuru. Kwa sababu nitakupa example hapa Mombasa, kuna pahali watu wa revenue wanasema wanafukuzwa live. Wanaambiwa mmekuja hapa kuchukua ushuru na hakuna kazi imefanya, na wametaja mpaka Bangla, wametaja vitongoji duni. Idea ya kuprint kofia, tukifanya hii research ya hapa Mvita, tulipata kwamba the biggest provider ya information kwa wananchi ni cybers. Cyber cafe ndio watu wengi wanaenda unajua wamefanya hii automation ya revenue mingi wameweka kwa mtandao, so watu wengi hawaelewi. Kwa hivyo kuna umuhimu ya wale maafisa wa county kwenda kwa wananchi kuwaeleza one by one kwamba hii mtandao inatumika hivi. For example, one of the ways, unajua watu walikuwa wanajua kwamba hii story ya mtandao ni kulipa tu ushuru. Lakini vile system zinakuja, kuna system ya hiyo process yote kuwa full kwa mtandao. For instance, niko na M-Pesa. Nitaijaza tu hapo kwamba M-Pesa shop. Nikishajaza itanipa information ni pesa ngapi ambayo sasa nafaa nilipe. Lakini kama tumewacha watu waende kwa cyber, majority, shida itakuwa ni sasa wao wenyewe wanatumia pesa mingi kwenda kwa cyber. Ndio wawekewe hiyo information. Ni tofauti kama wale maofisa wa county wamefika kwa wananchi na wamewaeleza. Hiyo ni moja. Lakini mimi naona pia county ikitaka pesa mingi pia izibe zile mwanya ambazo ziko. Moja ya hizo mwanya ni kuna wale watu ambao wanatembea kila siku wanachukua 50, 20. Ukipiga hiyo, ukijumlisha hiyo pesa kwa mwaka, utakuta ile pesa ambayo unafaa upe mtu wa county direct ni kidogo. Inaweza kuwa, it may look like 10,000 that you are supposed to pay, but look at it in a year. Divide that 50-50 per month. If it is 50 per month, for 1 month alone, you would have paid around 1,500. So for 10 months, that is 10,500 for add another 2 months, around 13,000. So utakuwa umelipa mingi vile naona. Alafu pia hii maneno ya kueleza watu maneno ya ushuru pia should be continuous. The governor should engage more, the department should engage more, but they should also listen more. Because economic tides keep on fluctuating, and it is proper that when things zinafinya wananchi, nyinyi pia mna take consideration ya zile watu kufinywa, mna regesha chini ushuru wenu.
All right. We are speaking to Zedekiah Adika. Is an advocate of the High Court. He's also the chair Coast Civil Society Network for Human Rights. We're looking at on-source revenue, how county governments generate their own revenue. How does this work? When we get back, I want to know, why are some other counties generating more and some way less? What's happening? What are they doing that other counties are not doing? You know, that is what we're going to talk about when we get back. But if you have a question, 0700917917. Studio, we do have the advocate of the High Court, Zedekiah, an advocate of the High Court, Zedekiah Adika, is the chair Coast Civil Society Networks for Human Rights, and we are talking about counties generating their own revenue. How counties can generate their own revenue? What are the gaps in this? Now, Zedekiah.
Yes.
A report I have here that in the 2023-2024 financial year, Nairobi County collected the highest revenue of 12.5 billion shillings. And that is 21.3% of the total revenue collected by the counties, right?
Yes.
And then I also have another one that says that Tana River had the lowest on-source revenue collection, representing only 0.2% of the total revenue collected by counties. Let's start from... we have the major cities.
Yes.
We have Nairobi County. We have Nairobi. We have Mombasa. We have Kisumu. Eldoret is now a city, but
Eldoret is coming up.
It's coming up. So I don't want to put it up saizi because
ni watoto bado.
Yes, but I want to look at the major cities. Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu.
Na pengine Nakuru.
Na pengine Nakuru. When it comes to generating revenue, of the cities that we've mentioned. So Nairobi is the highest. How is it that Nairobi is collecting more than Mombasa and more than Kisumu?
I think that is the traditional nature. That revenue also relies on the population you have and how engaged they are. It's given that Nairobi has the highest population amongst all these counties. Number two, the awareness of the systems starting at Nairobi. It began kitambo when the city council, and even you could see their politics. It was very pushy. It is because of the resources that they could get. And then Nairobi also has set certain taxation limits slightly higher. If you look at their parking fees, slightly higher, even in a day compared to Mombasa and compared to all these others. Land value in Nairobi is higher. I told you the highest income generation for all these counties is health. And you know about the health facilities in Nairobi. For quite a very long time, you would find that there are certain diseases that could be diagnosed in Mombasa, but then you are directed to Nairobi. That means that the income is largely going to Nairobi. But also Nairobi is a hub and a capital city. And so given even the international businesses that are within Nairobi and attraction of employment opportunities, and that means that if I'm employed in Nairobi, I will eat in Nairobi. Mama mboga wa huko atapata pesa. That mama mboga will give the county money. So that is how it is. But post this constitution and in the process of counties getting more revenues, what you look at is what have they done with their systems. So, for instance, have they automized their systems? I think Nairobi is largely automated. Mombasa is also coming up. I think a lot of our revenue streams are either halfway or to a certain percentage automated. Accountability in the counties are slightly higher. In the Nairobi and Mombasa, a lot of noise from civil society, from communities, and also from county assemblies. You will hear them mostly in these counties. Even the media focus would be in these cities. But that does not say that they don't steal there. They still steal in those counties. So that is what I've seen. But if you look at that revenue stream, I would sometimes want us to look at it. If you want to look at that performance, you should look at it vis-a-vis their own projections. So that what percentage of their projection do they get? I can tell you, for instance, I was sharing with you before that Mombasa in the last 5 years has raised more than 19.5 billion in the coast amongst the coastal counties. And out of this 19.4 billion, the second one is 4 billion. That is Kilifi. 4.3 billion is the second one. But I can share, for instance, with number 5, with is Lamu. Lamu has been getting 112 mean. If you add them and you divide by the number of years, 112% of what they project. And Mombasa is at 69. So they have 19 billion, but at 69%. Lamu has only 700 million, and they have 112%. So that tells you that if you tell me our budget is 15 billion, don't continuously give me 12 billion. Because then you have a gap of 3 billion that we cope on having either pending bills or not providing certain services. So if I were a governor of Lamu, I can tell you to the expectations of the people, especially if the people get involved in the budget process, my people would be more satisfied compared to people in Mombasa that have made a budget of 19 times more than me in the last 5 years.
So what we're looking at here is that Lamu has hit its target.
It hits its targets most of the time. And more. The other one in this narration, apart from the ones that you've talked about in the cities, in the last quarter, the first quarter of this financial year, the highest was again Tana River. Because Tana River in their projection, they have gotten to 80%. What they projected to get. Narok was second at 60%. There was Samburu and then there was Garissa. But this is informed by, especially the one for Tana River, is informed by the natural resources that was, I think there's a natural resource called gypsum that has been giving them a certain percentage. So that this natural resource shot up their income. And it is one of the calls that we've made to coastal counties, because almost all these coastal counties have a lot of natural resources that do not give revenue to our counties. For instance, what is the mess we go through because of KPA here as Mombasa is a lot. But then the money that is raised at KPA all goes to national government. So then we share equally the money from KPA. We share equally with Kisumu that does not feel the effects of the ramifications of KPA, the sort of lorries, what they do to people here, even the pollution levels are higher for us from KPA as compared to even Taita Taveta and the others. But then once money goes to national government, then it is our equitable income. But if we had, for instance, the way Narok has an agreement with the conservancies down there, that there's a certain percentage that comes from the park to Narok, we also have a small percentage from KPA that we get directly. And then once it goes to national, hiyo sasa tutashare, but ile yetu ya kutuumiza tunaipata, we will lessen the burden to mwananchi and we can even reduce our taxes rate to wananchi and use those natural resources.
So what you're saying is a larger percentage of the income generated from the natural resources goes to the national government.
And that is a debate that I don't know what our senators, 6 of them, have been doing. I think that is the debate that the coastal county senators have to push for. The landmass for Taita Taveta, over 60% is Savo. Then all that resources that they get from Savo, they send to national government.
Why?
Because then that is how the formula.
I mean, because this is a resource that's within my location.
Mi nafikiria. Okay, sijui nitatumia neno gani, lakini itakuwa ni udhaifu wa hiyo serikali yenyewe, because ukienda Kajiado, I come from Kajiado, but the other day the president aliwaruhusu, I think 40% ya Amboseli National Park, sijui ni 40 hapo wanapata from what they collect there, wanapata. Ukienda huko Masai Mara, Narok, ameshasema hapa. But why is it Taita Taveta tuko 12 years kwa devolution na bado
we're not benefiting from that.
How benefit from anything na hiyo land yao kubwa imeenda na national park.
Would you say that this is a space where the county government imelegea?
Watu wamelegea ni Senate.
The senators.
I think the Senate and senators from those counties need to push more. And they can put in policies to push more resources to their counties. And if, for instance, I talk about the coast, there are 6 of them. They can put their heads together. And natural resources in our counties, so much. Go to Kilifi, you get salt. Come to Mombasa, I've talked about KPA. Huku kuna Kwale. There's a lot of natural resources, sugar and titanium, based titanium. Go to Lamu, there are a lot of natural resources income that should go to counties, including what is the percentage that we get from these hotels, because the social effects of the development of hotels in the coast hurts the coastal person. If there is a negative effect, it hurts us. So we need to get a little bit more resource from those hotels as compared to other places where they are not there.
All right. We were supposed to get, I say this a lot, devolution was supposed to bring service closer to the people. And when we look at how devolution has worked, there's funding from the national government that's sent to the counties, right? And then there's also provision for the county governments to collect their revenue that is now through on-source revenue. why are we still seeing a space where some counties are less developed and even the residents in that area are still grappling with things? Today we're talking about water. In which county?
Kilifi.
In Kilifi County, you know? So why are we seeing a space where that joy that you were supposed to get out of devolution is not really there as it should be?
Let me say, even Mombasa, the matter of water, if we start discussing, we will even fight. It's so bad that we have an ocean here and we can't get proper water. There are two things. One, the national government is still at war and has refused to relinquish certain functions to counties. But some counties have also been performing very dismally. I can give an example of Homa Bay. When the other regime was there, they were getting revenues of 200 million, 300 million. Wanga came within one financial year, they got 1.2 billion. So you is it magic that in few months somebody comes and then they it's because people eat that money and they sometimes eat it so big than they forget that there was a reason why counties were established. So that, for instance, at the coast, there was a matter of a feel of being left out and little of that budget coming down here. Now we have been told, get your own resources. Then you start stealing it. There was a bizarre case of one of these counties where people said there would be a mortuary and money was spent to build a mortuary. And when the Auditor General came, there was no mortuary.
What happened?
It was eaten. It is in books. It is not in the ground. There's a stadium that was built in one of these counties. There was supposed to be a basketball court. The basketball court entirely was not there. So that people sometimes eat everything. That is part of the problem that Kenyans have to deal with. And we can't deal with it if we don't interrogate these numbers, if we don't get close to what is being produced, if we don't ask questions.
Adika, when you say people eat everything, a mortuary was supposed to be built, it wasn't built. A basketball court was supposed to be built, it wasn't built. We already know that Salim was the one in government at that point, right? An example, okay? We know that Salim was the one in government at that point. Salim was the one responsible for this project. What are we doing to Salim?
Very little. You go to all these prisons. I go to prisons a lot of times. You will not find a politician of echelons of a PS or somebody who held those posts. Even people who have been convicted are in parliament. They are supposed to be in prison. Sentence has been read. Then they go back to parliament and they are in parliament and talking about our proceedings. We have not gotten serious with handling matters of corruption. Even though we have a good constitution, we have not really handled the issue of corruption to the extent that it should be held.
Me, I have two questions, but in Tanzania, hili. It's now past 10 years since devolution. Kwanzia 2013, 10 years after 2022, sasa tuko na miaka miwili tunaelekea watatu. So let's say ni 13. Why is it that hakuna hata kaunti moja yenye inaweza jisimamia bila ya mchango wa serikali kuu? That is Mombasa hapa iseme sisi tumekusanya pesa yetu ni hii na tuna run county yetu bila tatizo lolote ya pesa za serikali. Is it possible ama hiyo kitu haiwezekani na haitawahi kuonekana?
I don't want us to go that route. What I want us to look at is, what do we project to fill our budget? Do we fill it completely? But there are counties that have gotten resources to fill those gaps. And I can tell you positively that I've seen a positive growth, especially in the coastal counties. If you read the last two control of budget reports, there is a positive growth on how revenue is generated and put to a basket. What we now need to look at is, does it translate to service delivery? So that, like when we were doing this research, we were told in Vita there is progressively very good lighting that has gone on. There was also progressively good roads in Vita.
Yeah.
But there was a problem, big one, with the fact that when it rains in Vita, businesses close for a week to 1 week, some days, they close completely. So that is one thing that needs to be corrected. Some sewer are still not attended to. Yeah. And we pushed the governor with especially the sewer, and he told us that there have been a problem for 16 years about some of these sewer points.
Yeah.
And they are trying to find resources to turn around how the sewer systems look like.
Yeah.
Whether that will come to fruition, that is upon how the people of Mombasa and all the counties push their leadership. Yeah.
Okay.
Those people must not sleep. We can't give somebody 15-20 billion and then we go and sleep.
Yeah.
We have to be looking at him day and night.
Okay. Another question is,
Yes.
it is CRA.
Yes.
Commission.
Commission on Revenue Allocation.
I saw somewhere that kaunti ya Kwale
Yeah.
ina uwezo wa kukusanya on source revenue ya mpaka 3 billion. But up to date hawajai hit mark ya 1 billion.
1 billion.
Yeah, because nimeona ni mwaka wa kifedha huu na next wamejiekea limit yao the way unasema 600 right? Why is it that kama hao wenye wanasema mapato ambao wanaweza kusanya ni 3 billion, hawa hata 1 billion hawajawahi kabisa kwenye maisha yao?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is partly laxity of how the revenue department works. It is a lot of hard work, by the way. I know some of few counties like Makueni, when Kifutha Kibwana used to sit with his team for revenue like on a daily basis to see the projections, the progress, the what. But Kwale must also push for the place of natural resources that is in Kwale. They have to push because, like Base Titanium, they had always wanted to comply. But then we are told that there are certain things that have not been done and therefore they can't get the money. It's a lot of useless talk because the natural resource has been given. You cannot say that they are exploiting natural resources and we are waiting for some legislation for us to use the money. And yet the investor is using the money wherever they are getting the billions and the profits. And you can't get money from Treasury to Kwale because it is some laws. I think that is a lot of laxity for the entire political class in Kwale, from MCA to MPs, to especially the MPs and the senators, and even the political place of the governor. Their former governor is nowadays a minister. I don't know why. He can't push. He was also in the mining department. He has no excuse for not getting the money that belongs to Kwale people to Kwale.
Yeah.
Is it
and Joe is also not he can't be exempted. He needs to look for a way that all the coastal counties benefit from the natural resources.
Yeah.
Zedekiah,
Yep.
nikisema kwamba hatujaitumia bahari kutengeneza kipato kwa kaunti zote 5, because Taita Taveta haina bahari, iko na Lakes, Jipe pale na Chala. Hizi ambazo ziko kwenye bahari, kwamba hatujazitumia vile inavyofaa kupata kipato chetu wenyewe. Nitakuwa nakosea because ukiangalia mathalan Tanzania ama nchi ambazo zimeendelea, for example Singapore, wako na hizi mnaita mabasi ya kwenye maji.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yenye anaweza kafanya tour ya baharini.
Yes.
Na ikawa hiyo basi pengine ni account. I don't know kama inawezekana.
Yes, I got a point there.
Yes.
There was a discussion and it went to Supreme Court about whether Mombasa should use ferry
Yeah.
as an on-source revenue generator for Mombasa County. I have even told the current governor that now that they have political goodwill from the president,
The broad-based stuff.
the broad-based thing, that is one of the things that we need to win.
Yeah.
Because the definition that was given in the High Court was that that should be our resource as a county.
But they have
Then
merged
they
it.
went to Court of Appeal. Then they won at the Court of Appeal and took that resource to national government. Then at the Supreme Court, there was a delay of advocates.
Mhm.
They didn't do something in time. And that is how that resource went to
KPA.
to national government. If we have that resource as a county resource, because it is interland in kati ya nchi yetu,
Yeah.
the use of those buses, somebody coming from Mtwapa to ferry should
Yeah.
not use the road and then use ferry. Yeah. So if that can happen,
Yeah.
then that's another form of income generation. But we have not exploited the avenues that we have. And also, I think the people at national government should not wait for us to start talking about to them. If you mean and you leave the law and the spirit of it, you sometimes just relinquish and say, this role was supposed to be given to the counties. If there is a intergovernmental relations committee that was looking at the roles at national and county governments, and they gave that ferry service to the counties at the cost. But because of that judgment, it is still at national government. So it can be exploited that way, the way you are saying, once it comes to the counties. But I also do not see why national government cannot then be creative enough to use that resource, because any resources that is collected from Wakenya and it becomes part of our basket, it grows the revenue, and then that revenue should be able to help Kenyans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. As we wind down, you spoke earlier on, you spoke about small businesses contributing more
Yes.
to revenue.
Yes.
How is that?
In our study in Mvita, it indicated that 73% of businesses are small businesses. So the few ones are the national government. I told you about Streetlight, I told you about the road network, but Tononoka, I think Tononoka and Shimanzi are, and this place is called Majengo.
Yes.
Those are the places where you have a lot of those small businesses, and then Old Town. So the smallest of businesses is in Chuda. Those are where the numbers are slightly low. But then what that means is we must consider in our development plan the thriving of small businesses, so that you can even reduce their taxation so that more of them come into the basket of giving directly to the county, as opposed to 50-30 that they give to your kanjos, and then that does not come into the main kitty. So those are some of the things that they need to look. If there's flood, the person that is most affected is not the owner of the vehicles sale depot somewhere. The person that is most affected is the mama mboga whose place is flooded and they will not be able to sell.
I would like to understand the science. How is it that, okay, so what are we comparing this? We call small business compared to?
You have very large businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. These things like supermarket, those are big ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the large businesses, I would assume that they're generating a lot of income, a lot of revenue.
What happens is most of the time you would find that the amount that they pay, it could be one big business, but they pay slightly more of that resource to the county. The person who sells vehicles here, you cannot expect that person to pay the same as Mama Boga who is down there. But the one that consistently pays, are the small businesses. And their thriving is also has a relation to the quality of life of your people.
Yeah.
Who majority votes are those people down there? Who are the majority in the slums? And who are the majority who are suffering?
Yeah. So meaning for the government to collect more, I'm looking at, because I mean the government is working towards collecting more revenue through taxation, right? So for the government to collect more, there needs to be a conducive environment
for the small businesses
to thrive.
Yeah. And that's why, for instance, if in this data, when we were talking to Revenue Department, we got that Mvita has the highest number of resource in this single business permit.
Yeah.
They give the highest of the percentages, up to over 90. But if you go to Likoni, if you go to Jomvu, there's a problem because the small businesses do not have a thriving environment. And though they're also hostile to the revenue guys and tell them, no, you cannot come here to be taxing us, and the services are not commensurate to what you want.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Zedekiah. This has been very informative. We have been speaking to the advocate and advocate of the High Court, Zedekiah Adika. He's the Chair Coast Civil Society Network for Human Rights. We've been talking about on-source revenue. Now, at least you know that your county government collects its own revenue. Now, what you need to ask is, where and how is it spent? Question for another day. Good morning.